if you or anyone you know is struggling with alcohol, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 222222 or check out their website on aa.org.au. I'll just run through the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other. They must solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
My name's Dave, I'm an alcoholic, and it's lovely to be here down at the National Convention in Adelaide. I was a binge drinker, and I can go for quite a while without needing a drink. But as soon as the pressure or anxiety came in, then I'd drink. And it was a long time before I realised that I was an alcoholic. And on my last day of drinking, or my last but one day of drinking, I was due to talk to some car dealers. I used to work for a motor company. And to start the morning off, I went down to the local supermarket, which had started opening early, and I bought 2 cans of wine. And although I had a lovely wine cellar at home, the only necessity was that on each can it said 13% alcohol. And I drank the 2 cans, went and talked to the car dealers, and I didn't have a lot to do for the rest of the day. But I got a call from one of the directors, and it was when we'd launched a Scorpio, and he had a problem with his car, and I had to drive over and pick his car up. On my way, I always maintained I had to go past my house to get there, but if you put it in Google Maps, you would go probably via Aberdeen before you go past my house. And I stopped there and I picked up a bottle of scotch which I had hidden under the floorboards in the bathroom. And I lifted the carpet and under the floorboards, got the bottle of scotch, back with the floorboards and down with the carpet. And it was an old foam back carpet. And as I dropped it back, all this black dust goes all up the wall. And now I've got to get the vacuum cleaner out and start to clean all the dust up before my wife gets home. And it's hard work being an alcoholic. Anyway, I set off around and picked up his car. And meanwhile, I'm drinking the scotch as I'm driving round. And I was off to France that evening, so now I've got to get to the airport. And I set off down the motorway, and I'm running late anyway. And I must have been doing 60, 70 miles an hour. And alcohol by now has got an effect on me that it makes me fall asleep. And I fell asleep at the wheel. I smashed the car into the central reservation. It was like it was all in slow motion. And I managed to get the car to the side of the motorway, and I had what I now believe, or what I like to call, blue light sobriety, because I knew the police were coming, and I was scared. And when I was scared, I did what I always did, and I ran. And I left the motorway, I'm over the motorway fence, and I'm trucking across this field, and I'm heading for Epping Forest. I haven't got a clue which way Epping Forest is, but it's the equivalent of your bush around London. And there was 2 concerned citizens who stopped, and they quietly or quickly came after me and brought me back to the motorway. The police arrived and they took me to Brentwood Police Station, and I was put in the cells there. And while they brought charges, and I failed the breathalyzer miserably. I was 3 times over. And they let me go, and they even offered me a lift home. And I was walking up through Brentwood Station, through Brentwood, and I'd already made a decision while I was in the cells. And I'd love to say to you that the decision I made was to call AA, but it wasn't. The decision I made was to kill myself. And I had plenty of pills with me because I was on a trip abroad. And as I walked up through Brentwood, I stopped at an off-license. I picked up a bottle of vodka, and I knew where I was going to commit suicide. There's a little wood behind where I live, and that's where I was going to commit suicide. And I didn't end up there. I ended up in the grounds of Brentwood Cathedral, and I don't know why, but they had a very active little social club. And I hunkered down behind this social club, and I swallowed the pills, and I squashed it down with the vodka, and I'm sitting there waiting to die. But as it was an active social club, every time anybody went in or out of the social club, the door banged. And I'm sitting there waiting to die, and I'm getting resentment against the people who are keeping me awake. Anyway, somebody found me, they called the police. The police picked me up, and they took me to Old Church Hospital. I have no recollection of that night at all. The only thing I remember is the policeman turning around to me and saying, "Whatever you do, do not throw up in the back of my car." I woke up in the morning, and I couldn't tell you where I spent the night, whether it was in a bed, on a chair, or on a trolley. But standing in front of me was a woman, blonde hair, glasses, and a white coat. And I pretty soon figured out that she was trying to get me committed. So I did no more than discharge myself from the hospital, still determined to kill myself. Now, Old Church Hospital is in the middle of Romford, and it's surrounded by a dual carriageway. But there is also an underpass that allows you to get into the town. I didn't know this. So I crossed the dual carriageway very carefully, climbing over the barriers, 3 barriers, I think. And I crossed the road carefully on my way to commit suicide. I went to Boots. I bought 200 paracetamol, because you could in those days. Found somewhere to buy a bottle of vodka. And this is quite a busy town, so I've got to try and find somewhere nice and quiet to die. Eventually I did. I found what was the Romford to Upminster branch line. And I sat down beside the railway line, and I wrote my wife a letter. I can't remember what was in it now. I took the pills, washed it down with the vodka, and in blackout apparently, I wandered down onto the railway line, fell between the rails, and the train came along. The driver couldn't stop. And from what the transport police told me, the train somehow bowled me over, threw me out between the train wheels, and all I had wrong with me was that I had a broken arm and a broken leg. The 2 transport police phoned for the helicopter from the London hospital. I was in intensive care in the London hospital for about 3 days. When I came out of the sort of coma I was in, I was put in a side ward, and I was put under psychiatric watch for 24 hours psychiatric watch. And while I was there, I knew I couldn't drink again. And that was purely out of fear that I couldn't drink again. And I know today that I would have overcome that fear. And while I'm there, I'm thinking, well, I can't drink again. I know what I'll do. I'd smoke dope. I wasn't a dope smoker before, but that seemed the only alternative to not drinking, to being unable to drink alcohol. I was eventually got out of that hospital into another private hospital where they operated again on my leg. And then the psychiatrist who was there looking after me was also a medical director of a rehab. And she said to me one day, she said, "You must have gone through the menu at this hospital." She says, "Why don't you come over to the Priory Hospital?" She said, "And we've got a good chef, and we've got Sky TV." So I said, "All right, I'll come." So I ended up in a rehab, and I was on a general ward to start with. And eventually a guy came to see me. He said, "Do you want to come to group therapy?" I said, "Will it help me stop smoking?" I said, "No." He said, "No." I said, "I won't bother then." But he didn't give up, and the following day came back with about 3 foolscap sheets of sort of yes-no questions, and said, I've got to put these through the computer. I'll be back in a little while." I know today that he didn't have a computer to put those through. He'd just been away, had a cup of coffee, cigarette, and he came back and pronounced me a chronic alcoholic, which was absolutely disgraceful medical procedure in my book. Anyway, I joined the addiction treatment program, and I wasn't getting on well. I was telling the counsellors what I thought they wanted to hear rather than what they really wanted to hear. AA meetings were compulsory, so I was going to AA meetings as well, but I still really wasn't getting what was going on. And then one night I'm sitting in my room, and it's like the whole of the room opened up, and over in the grounds of the rehab, there was this apparition of a monk, and I couldn't see his hands or his face or his feet, and the whole image moved closer, and I still couldn't see his hands or his face or his feet, but I got this tremendous feeling of reassurance, and I couldn't tell you whether that apparition lasted 10 seconds, 10 minutes, or 10 hours. All I know is that something changed within me, and I got this spiritual experience or spiritual awakening that changed me completely. I was able then to starting to become honest, and was able to start engaging with the program within the addiction treatment program. I did steps 1, 2, and 3 in there, and then came out with my sponsor, did 1, 2, and 3 again the proper way, and carried on working the steps. But I got into hobby very early on in AA. And as I said, I had a broken arm and a broken leg from being under the train. And one night at a meeting, I went to give the lady secretary a hug. And as I went to hug her, I got tangled up in my crutches. And as I fell forward, the only thing I could cling on to was this lady's chest, which from memory was 36 double D. And I like to class that as my second spiritual awakening. We were intimate at our first meeting, but never again. And but I was very lucky that the compulsion to drink was removed from me early on, and I was able to carry on working the steps as best I could. In fact, today is almost an anniversary of my first step 4 and 5. My first step 4 up, and I remember sitting down, and it was Easter. And I had it all sort of written out in front of me, the big book way. And as I sat down to start writing my 4-step inventory, I'm thinking, I could do with a drink now. And luckily enough, I obviously didn't take that step and carried on to do the 4th step. But I've had a wonderful life, and in AA, my daughter's in this fellowship. She's and although I was aware that of the hereditary possibility that she may have the alcoholic gene, I never saw it coming. It was a complete shock to me. But luckily enough, she's been sober for over half her life now. For me to achieve that, I got to live till I'm 94, and I'll give it a go anyway, depending on what God has got in store for me. I've had a wonderful life, and I've now become addicted to doing tag-alongs in Australia. My daughter first set me up in the to go to on a tag-along, and I met up with Walkabout Wally in Coober Pedy, and one of the first things we did was go down an opal mine. My daughter was 6 months pregnant at the time. There was about 5 or 6 of us who went down, and we mined some opal. Anyway, as we were about to come out, the gentleman who owned the mine, he goes up first, and he's about 10 foot up in the air when the generator breaks down. So we've got no way of getting out. Eventually, he gets out by a different route and goes and gets another generator organised. But while we were down there for about 4.5 hours. The only thing we could do was have an AA meeting. There will never be another meeting down there because nobody could ever find that mine again. But we had a wonderful time, and then we worked our way up, all the way up to Darwin for their roundup. And I got addicted to tag alarms, I must admit. That was my first time out into the bush. I live in the suburbs of Essex, and now I'm in the wilds of Australia. And we don't have corrugations in Essex, but you seem to have quite a few in Australia. And we went all the way up to Darwin to their roundup, and we went to Kakadu and Litchfield, and I fell in love with Australian outback. I've done a lot more since. I've done four national conventions in Australia. I've done 4 Douglas daily roundups, and I just can't get enough of AA in Australia. I love AA in England, but I loved AA in Australia as well. And I'm still Cape York. Oh yes, Cape York. Dennis was just reminding me. Wally called me one day, or he texted me one day and said, we're going to Cape York. And I said, I'm coming. So I booked my airline ticket. I hadn't a clue I was going to get up there. Anyway, about a month or so before we're due to go, I start looking to hire a 4x4 up out of Cairns to go all the way up to Cape York. And I'm looking around and I can't find anything. I'm looking for mining vehicles, can't find anything there either. Anyway, my wife was visiting my daughter in Australia, in Sydney, and she went down to the fish and chip shop. And there in the window was an advert for a 2001 Prado, Land Cruiser Prado. So she got it checked out. She got my daughter to check it out, and her Noel Carman. And anyway, my wife bought it for me. And I was like a kid at Christmas. I have never been so excited about owning a vehicle. And I wasn't going to tell Wally that I got this 4x4. And I was just going to roll up with Mr. Big Man in his 4x4. But I was then excited that I texted him and told him I got a 4x4. Anyway, he phoned me back the following day. He says, I hear you've got a 4x4. I said, yeah. He says, well, Dennis and I are having trouble hiring one. Can we come with you? So we all went up together, and we had a wonderful fellowship trip all the way up to the top of Cape York and all the way round and various places up around there. And it's really wild. And we had a wonderful, wonderful trip. And then we came back down to Cairns, and then we set off across the top as well, all the way over to Darwin on the dirt. And it was wonderful. There's so much spirituality both in the territory and driving through those lands that it's an experience I've never forgotten and will never forget. It's part of recovery. Recovery means to me the freedom. And where I was trapped, if you like, in the constant cycle of alcoholism, today I'm free. I can't believe that my wife bought me that vehicle, because obviously she suffered my alcoholism. I was never violent, but you can be violent with your tongue, you can be violent with your attitudes, and you can be violent with it in many other ways than physically violent. She obviously must care for me, so love me enough to buy me a vehicle, and I've still got it. I've done thousands and thousands of miles in it. I've been to roundups, I've been to meetings, I've been up and down the middle 2 or 3 times. But when I was coming back down in 2017, I was driving south of Marie, and all of a sudden I thought I'd had a blowout. And I didn't brake very hard, thank God, but when it actually happened, the ball joint had failed and the wheel had come off. And I pulled up, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's Sunday, there's no phone reception, and the one thing that really struck me was I wasn't afraid. I knew I could do something. I picked a camp spot out. I knew I had to light a fire up the road because there's road trains going through and they don't stop for anything. And that surprised me, the fact I wasn't afraid. Eventually somebody came along, got the vehicle picked up. I spent a week in Copley and surrounds, which is a very quiet little place, but I had a lovely time visiting wherever I could. And that's what it means to me, the freedom from fear, the freedom to do what I want, and the freedom to be here. And I've had a lovely time, and everywhere I've been, it's been new to me. It's something fresh, something to see, something to believe, and something to experience. I've had my daughters, as I say, is in the fellowship. When in our early days, we used to have deeper, meaningful discussions, and she'd say to me, "Father, how many steps are you working in your program today?" Or the one that really used to kill me was, "Father, why don't you phone your sponsor?"
Yeah.
And so we have a lovely relationship. We have a father-daughter relationship, and we have an AA relationship as well. And that's a great thing. Humility, ego and humility are two things that fight each other, if you like. But I had a wonderful restoration to humility by a guy who I'd known. He'd been around about a year. And he used to phone me up and we'd chat about how he was doing and all the rest of it. And we got talking about, he was about to do his step forward. I said, "Well, how are you getting on about it?" He says, "Well, I've written some of it," he said, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, and it sounded like he wanted me to take him through step 5, or that's what I thought. I said, "Well, I'm going away a bit soon," I said, "for a few weeks." I said, I'm not able to take you through step 5. He said, "Put your ego back in your pocket, Dave. I wasn't going to ask you to be my sponsor." So I had a very, very good restoration to humility by somebody who'd been around for just a short while. And that's it. I learn more from the newcomer than I can do from the old-timer. And that's what I hope I can keep that open mind forever. And thanks very much for listening.
We have local meetings for the full week in the local area. Monday is Gala meeting at 8 o'clock. Tuesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Wednesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Thursday is Two Wells at 8 o'clock. And Friday is Salisbury at 8 o'clock. There's a meeting at Daveron Park at 12 o'clock. And on Sunday there's a meeting in Salisbury at 7 o'clock. And many other meetings in the area. For details of your local meetings, please phone 1300 22 2222. And once again, if anyone you know is struggling with alcohol issues, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 22 2222. The website is aaSouthAustralia.org.au.